Welcome to Washington in Focus Daily. It is Monday, July 20th, 2026. I'm Carlene Johnson. And in today's episode, it has been more than a year since President Trump signed a memorandum revoking Biden administration actions that were aimed at removing the four lower Snake River dams. Uh, but that isn't stopping the Washington Department of Commerce with moving ahead with a taxpayer funded study, asking now for a request for proposals. So basically, taking bids for a contract for an organization that would say, okay, if you take the dams down, this is what it would cost to replace the same clean energy production that those dams produce. This is what it would cost to create all that additional infrastructure to put all those trucks on the highway instead of the river barge system for egg products to get to port. It's kind of fascinating to find out we're still moving down on two separate paths, but sort of been par for the course since the second Trump administration began. Then crime is down in some communities and some substantially, including the city of Federal Way. That's very interesting. The mayor's take on this is crediting the fact that police can pursue the bad guys once again. So we'll have some of those stats for the city of Federal Way for you coming up in today's episode. And then finally, the walk across Washington is underway. Ginny Burton walking more than 300 miles along the Palouse to Cascades Trail. She set out on Sunday morning. We were the only media outlet there as she began her fundraising and awareness campaign, if you will, for the next couple of weeks, walking more than 300 miles to try and get people to pay attention to her program, which is working. She goes into prisons, not only the correctional facility in Forks, the Olympic Correctional Facility, and trains inmates while they're still behind bars on how to make sure they never come back, to really transform their lives and get to the root of what got them there so that when they get out, they've got jobs, they're reunited with family, they're clean and sober. Her program's working, but she's not funded for this. She's reliant upon private donations. So we're trying to help her out a little bit because I believe very much in what she is doing. And it would save taxpayers a heck of a lot of money if the state would simply embrace what she's doing versus what they're doing that isn't working. So let's dive into today's episode. It was last year, about June, I think it was, of 2025, when President Trump signed a memorandum that basically revoked what former President Biden was trying to do. He was trying to fast track the dismantling of the four dams along the lower Snake River. Those produce a heck of a lot of energy for our state. It is clean energy. There's been a ton of investments in a fish ladder system to make sure that the fish can still, get through back to spawning grounds each year. But despite the fact that President Trump put the kibosh on what Biden was doing there, Washington state is still kind of moving along as if that never happened. Now, we have the Washington State Department of Commerce that is accepting proposals from qualified organizations or firms to analyze, okay, if we tear the dams down, we don't have all that power generation, all that clean energy. What would it cost to replace that? How many wind turbines would we have to put up, and solar panels and battery storage? Would that even be possible to do? What would it cost the state to have to put all those trucks on the highway to transport all of those agricultural products to ports rather than using the river system that the dam highway system, if you will, the water highway system currently allows? So this study is not going to be cheap, but I did find out some very specific information today on this from the Department of Commerce. They sent me the line item. It was funded. This study was funded in the 2025-27 budget at a cost of $800,000. That is what we're going to pay to have somebody come up. Oh, and by the way, it's $800,000 from the Climate Commitment Act. I found that to be interesting. So you're paying at the gas pump your CCA money, and now that money is going to go to a firm to say how we would replace all the clean energy if we tear down the four lower Snake River dams, even though at this point that's nowhere on the radar. So some of your CCA tax dollars at work. So I spoke to Chris Cargill, president of Mountain States Policy Center. He penned an op-ed in response. He says he believes Commerce isn't even asking the right question. He doesn't believe it should be, how much is it going to cost to replace the lost energy generation from the dams. He believes the real question should be, does it make any sense at all to continue to talk about tearing down these dams?
Washington State can do all the studies that it wants. It can pass anything that it wants, but ultimately, this decision will be made by the federal government. So it essentially depends on the administration that is in place at any given time and what that administration feels it needs to do in regards to the dams. But the dams are very critical to the Northwest power infrastructure. And in a time where we are looking under every couch cushion possible to see where we can get energy from. It is not a good idea to be removing the source of about 8 to 9% of the Northwest's energy. And not only is it energy, it's clean energy. It's energy that does not produce any carbon emissions. It's energy that is very clean in terms of air quality. And not only does it provide energy, but it also provides us the opportunity to get items to port and to ship items up the river infrastructure of the Northwest and take stress off of our roads and take stress off of our air in terms of air pollution from trucks that may have to be used if we didn't barge them up our river system. So there are many facets of this conversation, but it's important to know that, again, Washington State can do all the song and dance that it wants, but ultimately this decision will be made by the federal government.
So those four hydroelectric dams in eastern Washington provide enough power for 800,000 homes in the state of Washington. Now, some of our native tribes over the years and some progressive groups that just don't like the dams, they call the dams the boogeyman, um, have complained about, does this harm our fish? It definitely disrupts fish migration, but from the onset of the construction of those four dams in eastern Washington, those fish ladders have been in place, and they've made some other upgrades over the years to make sure that as those fish come back each year, that they have a safe path to get there. And all four of them have that. Again, I should say that I didn't name the four lower Snake River dams, but they are the Ice Harbor, the lower Monumental, the Little Goose, and the lower Granite. And again, all are equipped with U.S. Army Corps of Engineers designed adult fish ladders. I want to show you this short clip from a guy that I follow on YouTube. I find him to be fascinating. He's the armchair engineer. You may be familiar with him. He's been around for a long time. But I love he has a gift to sort of simplify some of these complicated engineering feats. And in this short clip, he's going to show you kind of how the fish ladders work on these dams.
So right down here behind me, you can see the entrance to the fish ladder. The thing about adult migrating fish is that they want to get upstream. They've got this biological imperative to spawn, and they're going to find a way upstream no matter what. As long as you provide an option for them to swim up past the dam, they're going to get there. The trick is making sure that they have an easy way to find it and that the conditions are conducive for their needs. For example, the salmon are attracted to a particular speed of current. So the dam has special pumps to put a current out into the river that specifically attracts the adult fish to swim towards it. Once the adult fish find the channel, the hard part is basically over. They're going to continue to swim upstream through the fish ladder until they reach above the dam.
And one more clip then from Mountain States Policy Center President Chris Cargill on why replacing the energy generation from the dams with other clean energy options doesn't really make much sense, and he doesn't believe it's even feasible.
They try to blame fish issues on the dams, which, again, we've shown, the research has shown that that's just not the case. And it is very difficult to get through to some of these people because they just have this preconceived notion that dams are bad and that we should just replace the dams with wind and solar. But uh, the challenge with that, there are numerous challenges with it, but one of the major challenges is that we're not in a good place in the country to be depending on wind and solar. All you have to do is look outside in January and realize that we may not get the most sun and we may not have the most wind of any place in the country. And in order to replace all of the electricity that's generated from these dams, we're talking thousands and thousands of windmills or millions of acres of solar panels, and that is just not feasible. Even if it were feasible, you don't have the battery infrastructure right now to be able to store all that energy. The great thing about the dams is, I mean, you can literally flip a switch and provide millions of hours of electricity to homes throughout the Northwest. You can't do that with wind or solar. You don't have the battery infrastructure in place right now to make sure that you're able to do that. So it is just not feasible, nor is it economical, nor is it an environmental benefit to replace these dams.
So I'm putting up an article on our Center Square Washington page today with a lot more information on this, as well as a link to the op-ed that was penned by Chris Cargill of Mountain States Policy Center. All right, new data coming from the city of Federal Way and the police department and the mayor's office, basically showing that crime in the city, in some categories, not all, but in some categories, has dropped dramatically. So 21% overall from this time last year. And some of the more considerable major reductions in key categories going back to 2023 are pretty remarkable. So here is a short clip of my conversation last week with Federal Way Mayor Jim Ferrell.
We've had dramatic decreases in crime in the past 3 years. And this is actually, I've been noting this, that car theft has gone down over 50% year per year for the past 3 years. So we're now at a cumulative, after 3 years of this, since 2023, car theft in the city of Federal Way has gone down 80%. Commercial burglaries are down, over 70%. We've got, we said to the statistics this morning, it's robberies are down in just double digits. So we're very, very pleased with the crime numbers and the hard work of our police department.
So again, some of those more dramatic declines, improvements in crime stats that the mayor provided me show motor vehicle thefts are down 80%, robbery down 71%, burglary 60%, and 34% for aggravated assault. So you just heard the mayor saying he believes that a lot of the credit is changes in the pursuit law in Washington. It was 5.5 years ago during the 2021 session that Democrats in the majority changed a law and basically made it impossible in most cases for police to even pursue unless they had probable cause of a crime being committed. Not even that it's a reported stolen vehicle, not even that you just saw the guy come running out from the 7-Eleven with maybe stolen items in his hands and jumping into a car. That was not probable cause enough for police to pursue. So lawmakers came back a couple years later and made some changes, but it still wasn't enough. Police were still saying their hands were really tied and they could not pursue. So it was finally then lawmakers kind of were shoved aside, if you will, by Let's Go Washington. They stepped in with an initiative to say, okay, you, the people, do you want police again to have to say, they have to have probable cause, or should it be a reasonable suspicion? An officer who, spots a stolen plate on a vehicle or sees someone coming out from a crime, or maybe, jumps into a car and takes off. They have, reasonable suspicion that a crime has been committed. Should that again be the threshold to restore pursuits? Well, 423,000 people in the state of Washington signed on to that initiative. So it went then to lawmakers, and they then decided they would go ahead and adopt those changes into law, restoring it to be, reasonable suspicion as the threshold to pursue. And it's not just Federal Way that has credited that change with some of the dramatic declines in crime in the state of Washington. I've heard those same comments from other jurisdictions and state patrol as well. Now, to balance that out on the flip side of the crime coin, if you will, um, we have a pretty pathetic rate of crime solving. I don't blame police for that. Of course, we still have the lowest police per capita rate of anywhere in the entire nation. But even for violent crime, and I'll read you this statistic, since 2022 up through the end of last year, 2025, there were 49,000 violent crimes that remained unsolved just in that short window of time. More than 400 homicides remaining unsolved, 29,000 aggravated assaults unsolved, and almost 7,000 rapes, 13,000 robberies. So we're kind of down there in the lower tier for states as far as the solved crimes stat, which is, and those statistics come from the FBI and they were given to lawmakers late in 2025. That's where I found those. But it's a little bit discouraging. But again, I don't blame law enforcement. They are understaffed. Almost every single agency across the state of Washington, small and large. So having the resources to follow up and solve these crimes as much as they, I'm sure, would like to, is not an easy thing to do. And then finally, an update, as promised, on a woman who's on a mission to raise awareness and raise a lot of money in the next couple of weeks. She's hoping for a program that she runs inside Washington prisons to transform inmates while they are still incarcerated so that when they are released, they have the skills needed and they've undergone the transformation while still behind bars. This is Ginny Burton and her Out Impact Coalition program that I'm talking about. Um, what the state is doing isn't working. We have a pretty high recidivism rate, and we spend a lot of money to incarcerate. The average incarceration costs for an inmate in the state of Washington are more than $63,000 a year. And then we spend thousands and thousands more when they get out and go into these low barrier, no barrier housing models. Many of them then return to addiction because they didn't truly learn the skills and do the hard work, the transformational work while they were still behind bars. And then the cycle ends up repeating. And of course, that costs you and I, the taxpayer, a lot more money. So Ginny Burton's program has a cost of $4,500 per inmate. She has lost some of her funding. She did have a Department of Corrections funding, now only about $80,000 for this year at a cost of $4,500 per inmate. She needs about $250,000 this year to put another 40 inmates through the program. So she's trying to raise that through private donations, and she's walking more than 300 miles across the state of Washington. She set out very early on Sunday morning from the top of the trailhead, the Palouse to Cascades Trail, so just outside North Bend. And I met up with her just after 6 o'clock on Sunday morning as she was preparing to set out. And this was part of that conversation with Ginny Burton of Out Impact Coalition.
We're at the Cedar Falls Trailhead in North Bend. There are actually two in Washington. One's on Highway 20. This is not the one on Highway 20. This is the one on I-90. I tell you, we spent the last couple of days getting ready. It has been a heck of a push. We got here to the trailhead probably at about 10 o'clock last night and finally went to bed around 11:30. Waiting for folks to show up here and get stuff going. We are going to embark on our journey today, 22.9 miles from here at the Cedar Falls Trailhead to Hyack, which is up at the summit of Snoqualmie.
So again, the goal is a big one. I checked the website today. She's up over the $22,000-ish mark out of the $250,000 she hopes to raise while she's walking. And she's asking people to come walk with her as well. People can do that or they can make donations on the website. It is out.org/walk. If you just search out Impact Coalition Walk, you'll find it. There's a number of different places you can find her on Facebook, but her out.org website is actually o-ut-walk.org. I'm sorry, .org and then /walk. And then you can get to the donation page. You can also find out where she's going to be making stops along the way if you want to meet up with her and walk. And she did send me a little update this morning when she was on mile 6 at about 10 this morning, and she was full of energy and said that everything was going well. I want you to hear one more clip from my conversation with her early yesterday, just before she set out on day 1 of the walk. And she ended up putting in, I think, like 26 miles yesterday. She was only going to do 22.9. I think they ended up doing more than that. But she was herself an addict for more than 30 years, in and out of incarceration, prison terms 3 different times. And finally, that last time in, it was just something switched for her, and she decided to transform herself while she was still behind bars, and got out and put herself through school and created this wholly different model, this 26-week intensive program. And the guys she's putting through don't come back. They are self-sufficient when they leave. They've got a job, they're paying their own rent, they're reuniting with families, they're clean and sober, all requirements of her very intensive transformative program.
One would think that good work is supported and progressed. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem to be the case with solution-based programs. And when I talk about solution-based programs, I mean that what I teach inside of prisons isn't just a model, but it actually supports people becoming self-sufficient. And so the goal really is to get visibility on my willingness to put in the work myself, not just sit around and ask government and others for money and to squander that money and have no accountability. I am willing to put my feet where my mouth is, and I encourage people to join me and be part of the solution. So I am hoping to raise $250,000 just on my own personal efforts, and with friends like you, I have been able to raise $20,000 so far. It's been fantastic over the last few weeks. We have about $230,000 to go to sustain us for a year to be able to put 40 people through the program. And when I talk about that, I mean 40 people that develop skills to where they learn how to navigate emotions, and then where they learn workforce development skill set, and connect with network opportunities as they transition out into the community, where they maintain being clean and sober, where they reunify with their kids, where they get into housing and they stay there, and not taxpayer funded housing, but autonomously paid for housing where they actually move toward home ownership. So, I'm really focused on people getting the same kind of opportunities that I was able to hand myself. And because our system has gaps, I, as a person with lived experience, push my way through, and I've tried to develop a pathway for others just like me. And so far I've been successful.
So obviously, you can probably tell I'm a believer in what she's doing. And as a taxpayer focused organization here at the Center Square, we need to start getting our policymakers, our those that have the purse strings for things like this, to pay attention to what's working, because this is working, and at a fraction of the cost to incarcerate these guys and to see the revolving door, not to mention just the destroyed lives. I've met some of the men that have gotten out after they've gone through her program, and they're wholly convinced these guys are the champions for her organization now. And even guys that are still behind bars, some have completed her 26-week program, but they're still in custody. They are the biggest proponents. They're getting other guys to get signed up. But again, there was a cost. She's got educational materials. She's got some staff that have to go in and train. And then they do make sure and connect these guys once they're out. So there's a cost for all of this. But if you believe in her message, believe in what she's doing, I would encourage you to check out the website and maybe make a donation to what she's doing. So, again, check out the website at out.org/walk. And go and walk with her if you've got some time off the next couple of days. She is the most fascinating person to talk. She's completely and totally authentic, completely transparent with what she's doing. So if you have any questions about what she's doing, she says, "Come out and walk with me. You can walk a mile with me. You can walk 20 miles with me. You can walk the rest of the way to Spokane." So I encourage you to check that out. So that's a wrap on today's episode of Washington in Focus Daily. Check out our Center Square Washington page for more articles like this, as well as my colleagues here are doing incredible work. So thanks for watching on this Monday. We hope to see you again tomorrow.